and she dreamt of Frankenstein and she won the contest. But most people, I would say, don't really want to have a nightmare. Everybody would prefer a sweet dream, and yet it evades us. I mean, most people's remembered dreams are of the nightmare variety, but that's not because those are the only dreams we're having. Those are just the ones that stand out so viscerally and vividly that we tend to think that those are the primary dreams that we're having, but they're really not.
Can you turn a nightmare into something positive?
You absolutely can. Years ago, this is the majority of my practice is built around transforming a nightmare into a rightmare. That's what I like to call it. And later I found out that this is what they've been doing at Harvard and Columbia University and so many different sleep laboratories and dream laboratories, where there's this very fancy practice called IRT. They call it Imagery Rehearsal Therapy. It's where you, in your waking state, you discuss a previous nightmare, and then you talk with somebody about how, if you were lucid, you would change that dream. If you had the ability to create any kind of outcome, how would you rewrite that dream? And this is what I'd been doing for years before I found out that Harvard was doing it. I thought they maybe hacked into my dream and borrowed that system from me. But the idea is that a nightmare is an unfinished dream. If we had the ability to go back into that dream with full lucidity, we would change that dream into something that ended, just like a nightmare, or just like a horror movie, for example. Often, if we left the movie 5 minutes before it was over, we would be traumatized. But if we stay to the ending, often the hero is triumphant in the end. So we want to go back in and finish the dream in a way that leaves us feeling empowered.
Do people sometimes have a dream and they just go, gosh, I'm glad that was just a dream?
Oh, yeah, and I've had those myself, but the problem is that it isn't just a dream. It is its own reality on its own parallel plane. So I like to say that we can say it's not a dream, but it is a reality that we're now not involved in because we're in a waking state. But it's as if there's this it's like a dangling participle. It's like this thing that has happened, that's out there, that is unresolved. So in some way, a nightmare that's unresolved will continue to kind of wear on us, because we're aware that there's something still out there that we haven't solved, we haven't fixed. So it's important to loop back in our waking state, whether in our own journal or talking to a friend or to a therapist or to me. People can always contact me. I get a lot of people that reach out to me and share their nightmares. I do private sessions and workshops with people. But it's important to close that loop and to finish those dreams in a way that gives you power. And I have an example of that from one of my clients, if there's time for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a client of mine who had a recurring dream about being chased by a giant man that she believed was trying to kill her. And every night he would get closer and closer and closer, and finally one night he caught her, and this is very gory, so if anybody's listening, I want to give a trigger warning, so stop listening if you're scared, or put a bubble around you of safety.
Just keep it clean.
Keep it clean. In the dream, so he hurts her. Let's just say he kind of dismembers her, and that's how the dream ends. And so obviously horrible. So I told her a nightmare is an unfinished dream. Let's go back into that dream, but not from a scared place. I want you to suit up and resource up before you go back in. What do you need to feel strong in order to go back in? And she said, well, I would call on my angels, I would call on my animal spirit guides. And so she didn't just go back in as a scared victim. She went back in empowered with an army of beings that had her back. And she was able to go back into that dream and imagine that she had the power to pull herself back together, to remember herself, to put her arms and her legs and her torso, everything back together. But just like how it is whenever we put ourselves back together, even in memory, it's never quite the same as it was once upon a time. it's better. It's kind of like it's way back in the day, the Bionic Man and the Bionic Woman.
Sounds like Humpty Dumpty.
Exactly. But in the bionic situation, we're going to put them back together, but only different, only better, only stronger. So she comes back in her newly imagined version of the dream, a more powerful version of herself, and she turns and faces the man that had hurt her, and he's now humbled. He's now terrified of her. And she, instead of hurting him, she turns her back and she walks toward the light, only to realize that he's now following her. And she realizes that now this guy is sort of in her debt. He is now sort of her servant who is there to help her on her path. So when she comes out of the session with me, she said that not only was she no longer afraid of men, no longer afraid of her relationships, her ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, but she said she felt like she is now powerful to be able to walk in and know that whatever she goes through, she's going to remember her strength and remember how powerful she actually is. So she doesn't have to be such a tough chick, one of those women that's got a chip on their shoulder and has to be mean to men. She's able to be softer and kinder because it's as if she has the power of kind of a triple black belt who doesn't have to go around having to prove how tough she is. So things are moving a lot better for her in the relationship domain as a result of that work and that dream.
Now, regular dreams that people have that are not nightmares, how do we explain that?
Well, it's important, I believe, to pay attention to any remembered dream, even if it's just a little fragment, a little wisp, even if it seems completely nonsensical. I think it's important for us to have a great respect for our dreams and our dreaming mind, because they are filled with wisdom that is beyond the scope of our ordinary rational consciousness. These dreams, even not the nightmares, I mean the nightmares I'm a big fan of, as you know, George, but the regular dreams are also just dripping in wisdom. Dreams are the language of our soul. So every remembered dream, and every time we work on a dream, give it a little bit of attention, even just a little curiosity. It's as if we're bolstering our own soul. And really, if we think about what is the main problem in this world, we could say it's about soullessness, people acting from soul loss, kind of acting like vampires, trying to take vital energy from other people and other circumstances instead of remembering to get their own power from themselves. So I think our dreams, every dream, is trying to help to return us back to the source of our own strength, of our own spirit, of our own soul.
Kelly, what do you think of karma?
I absolutely believe in it. I do. Why?
What goes around comes around?
Yeah, absolutely. The good and the funky and the not so good. Absolutely. That's why our mutual friend Dannion Brinkley talks about this, about the holographic life review on the other side. And having had my own near-death experience, I can attest to this, that anything we do, anything we put out there comes back to us. And I don't know if it's true that it comes back 10 times, but we do experience absolutely everything that goes out. So I think the belief in karma makes us want to be kinder people, because we realize, just like in dreams, everyone and everything is an aspect of ourselves. The way we treat anyone else, we're treating ourselves. So I think that the awareness of karma is a little instigator for us to level up a little bit toward us becoming slightly better people.
By the way, I hear you're giving away a luxury retreat in Costa Rica.
I am. I just did the drawing today, but I am still giving away. So yes, I have a retreat in Costa Rica. And actually what I'll do is, if anybody who's listening from your show, I will give them an additional $500 off of the retreat that's coming up in Costa Rica. It's in the summer, it's in June. It's a crisis is a terrible thing to waste retreat at this luxury retreat center that has its own waterfall on site with a beautiful mud bath. So
you're in the mud.
I am in the mud. You know, you might as well. It's a great exfoliant. So, but it'll be fun. And
did you know that some people who are holistic eat mud?
Yeah.
It's supposed to cleanse your insides or something.
And they probably drink their own urine as well, and I'm sure that's really good for them. But I haven't quite taken that leap. Not quite.
Good.
But you never know. But
anyways, back to this retreat.
Back to the retreat. Yes, I love doing work one-on-one with clients, and I love the next level up is working in groups. And the absolute best thing I love to do is to take people on a retreat where we get to spend days together. This will be a 5-day retreat where we get to go really deep. So if somebody has an issue, and we all have them, we all have the little issues, we have the medium-sized issues, and then we have the big issues. We have the issues that just break our hearts, and that it's like those sacred wounds that just don't seem to go away. I want people to bring that to the retreat so that they can have a very deep and profound transformation around that issue that's been with them their whole life. And that's my intent for this retreat. So it's going to be beautiful. There will be yoga, delicious food, and there will be dream work. But there is going to be a big transformation with regards to whatever it is that core wound that we've all been walking around with. It's time to heal that.
How do you re-enter a dream? You know, you're having a great dream and the phone rings and you wake up.
Yes.
How do you go back into that?
It's a great question, George, and so many people want to know how to do this, because when we re-enter a dream, it's really powerful, especially if it's a really good dream or interesting dream. So it's not an exact science, but what I've learned is there's a few things. The first thing is, if we can, the moment we get distracted and we wake up from the dream, as quickly as possible we want to return, because we're kind of in a race against time. The more time that passes, the harder it gets to return back to that dream. But if we can, as quickly as possible, part of the way to re-enter the dream is through our physical position. So we want to, if we were laying in bed on our right side when we were having that dream, we want to try to replicate that position, because there's something in the physicality of the way the pillow is, the blankets, whatever, that will put us back into that zone. So that's the physical part, is the easiest part to handle. The next part of it is more of the mental, emotional aspect. So if it's not happening immediately, we can ask ourselves, what is the energy of that dream? Was it positive? Was there love involved? Was it scary? Was it challenging? What was the primary energy? And we can just try to retrieve it, at least in our memory, to the best of our ability. And or usually there's some standout symbol. There's some visual, because our dreams are primarily operate with our visual cortex. So there's usually some color, some image, some symbol. So if we can even just pinpoint one little tiny part of the dream, and just focus on that and breathe into it and relax into it, not stress about it. If it's meant to be, we will re-enter it to some degree. And if none of that works, we can always, in our waking state, record the dream to the best of our ability, and through our ability to meditate, kind of energetically we can attune right back to that wavelength, and in some way pick up where we left off, even in our waking state.
Back in 2013, you wrote a book called It's All in Your Dreams.
You remember that?
Of course.
George, thank you. My God, we go back a long ways now.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. That was...
I'm going into my 21st year doing this program.
Wow. Gosh, I remember when you first started. I remember when it was Art Bell and you were coming on, and yep. That felt like yesterday. I can't believe it.
So where does the time go?
We're in a time warp. Life is a dream, George. I think when you do what you're good at and what you love, time flies. So, wow.
What's that saying? Row, row, row your boat. Life is but a dream.
Life is but a dream. It's not that life is fun when you're having flies. No, time flies when you're having
Exactly. Could our life be a dream?
Could life be a dream?
Yeah. I
believe it is. The shamans believe we are always dreaming. All the time. We are a dreaming species. In fact, we're never not dreaming. It's just there's sort of a different way of dreaming. There's different properties involved. In our nighttime dream, we can shape shift and we can walk through walls, and we can shift from the past to the present in the blink of an eye. It's a little slower and a little denser in our waking dream, but the same principles still apply. The things that scare us, if we ogle those things, if we really look at them, we realize, just like in The Wizard of Oz, it's just a little man behind a curtain. There's nothing inherently terrifying in the things that we think are so big and scary. If we really look at them and we bring in our army of light, we can handle anything.
Kelly, we're going to take a break here and come back and take calls on your book. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Folks, if you've had a crisis, share it with us. And then dreams next.
Find out more about tonight's guest. Log on to coasttocoastam.com.